Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. I thought about doing a video yesterday with all the breaking news, but decided to hold off until today because I wanted to let everything settle and then I can add a little more context. In addition to yesterday's news, there are several other items that I wanted to cover, including Ty Gibbs' start to the 2025 season and why it should be concerning to number 54 fans more than they think. Plus, I want to talk about Netflix being totally disrespectful to NASCAR and its fan base. I'll explain. However, before we get to that, I want to go back to Tuesday and the interview on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio with Cup Series Managing Director Brad Moran. He talked about the race at COTA and was asked about the confusion on Turn 6. Here's what he had to say.
We did a lot of work communicating, and everything was, we felt we were in a pretty good place. And then, going into the Cup race on Sunday, in the first stage, we caught on a team scanner that they weren't sure about Turn 6 shortcutting, and obviously we watched it take place right from the beginning of the race, and we didn't have an issue with it. So at that point, we have a communication system from the tower that can go to all the teams or any particular team on pit road penalties or any other messages or communication that the team wants to get with us or we get with them. So we did fire out just to confirm we are not policing Turn 6. And then from that point on, it played out well. But obviously there was some confusion because we had a lot of teams that had no questions, and I think we had a few that had questions, and that's our responsibility, to make sure that all the competitors understand. So going back, obviously we will not make that error again. We'll make sure that everybody totally understands. But a lot of changes took place from Thursday, Friday, very close to the race, and we got it dealt with as quick as we could, and I guess the broadcast as well was on the same page as a few of the teams. So got that corrected, carried on, and had a great event. But again, our responsibility, we'll make sure that doesn't happen again.
Did you notice how he said, quote, "We had a lot of teams that had no questions, and I think we had a few that had questions," end quote. He also said, and I guess the broadcast as well was on the same page as a few of the teams. He's trying to minimize it and suggest it was just a few teams. As you saw in Monday's video, Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell were confused by it. I didn't include an interview where Noah Gragson said the same thing. Oh yeah, also on Tuesday, I was on a call with Chris Buescher. I didn't ask him a question about this topic, but someone else asked him about returning to COTA. Not Turn 6, just returning to COTA. And he said this.
How we keep having these discussions of certain corners are going to be policed and others aren't. And, you're out in the dirt in some corners and watching people straight up shortcut corners. And the driver's meeting video that we watched beforehand says you can't shortcut any corner. And they will all be judged just like turns 3, 4, and 5 ended up being judged. Just a lot of confusion from my side. And to me, I think it's an easy fix. It's just to put physical barriers up is my thought process. It worked great in 6A. Nobody shortcut that one. It's 6B, same thing. There's a wall there. Nobody shortcut it, I promise. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't know how far it'll get, but I just seemed like go back and watch some of the fast laps of the race and trying to compare our data. And it's like, well, yeah, that was faster. They cut off 4 feet of the apex of Turn 6. I'm sure that was better. I didn't know that was an option. So I think that's just some of my frustrations of it are just understanding how we got to where we did.
I think it was more than a few teams who had issues with Turn 6. Moran acknowledging that NASCAR erred is now the third time in as many races that an official from the sanctioning body has admitted a mistake. First, it was race director Jason Hamilton after the quick yellow for Duel 2, where everyone thought that Eric Jones was the winner over Austin Cindric. The following week, it was Elton Sawyer in the Cup Series drivers meeting at Atlanta, telling the drivers they messed up the night before in the Xfinity Series race and would not allow cars to race through a debris field, which, to their credit, the next day they didn't. And now this at COTA. NASCAR fans complain about NASCAR being inconsistent. Well, guess what? They're 3 for 3 to start the 2025 campaign, which takes us to yesterday and all the breaking news. It started with NASCAR filing a countersuit against 2311 Racing, Michael Jordan's longtime business partner, Curtis Polk, and Front Row Motorsports. I was on the 30-plus minute call with NASCAR's lawyers, and my takeaway is this: NASCAR is really focusing on Polk and trying to paint him as an orchestrator of a conspiracy and getting teams to boycott a meeting, potentially boycott qualifying for a big race, and talking with a media partner. I'm not a legal expert and don't pretend to be, but based on what I've heard and read, the countersuit isn't going to amount to much in the end. But based on what lawyers did say, it will run in parallel with the existing lawsuit by the teams and go to court in December 2025. If that's the last we hear of it until then, I'm fine with that. As many fans pointed out on social media, that countersuit just took away the momentum and the spotlight to what has been an entertaining start to the season, the controversies aside. Speaking of controversies, the next news item that broke yesterday was the Austin Cindric penalty. He was fined $50,000 and docked 50 driver points, but no suspension, as was the case for Bubba Wallace at Las Vegas in 2022 and Chase Elliott a year later at Charlotte. Before I share my thoughts, take a listen to what Larry McReynolds and Kyle Busch had to say about it.
I'm happy for the two-team, Danielle, because Brian Wilson and that group, they didn't do anything wrong. And obviously, whenever your driver is penalized, you get penalized along with it because you are a race team. I heard you really go into bat with a caller on Monday about road courses versus intermediate tracks or whatever. I just hate we've now put this out there that we're saying it's okay on a lower speed road course versus a mile and a half. I kind of hate we've went down this road. Hooking is hooking, whether it's at Martinsville or whether it's at Las Vegas. I realize the speeds are different, but where's the line in the sand going to be now? Anything under a mile and a half, it's okay. You'll just get points and fine. Anything a mile and a half and bigger, you're going to get suspended. I'm happy for Austin because I felt like he just made a bad decision, but I hate now we've created this where we've differentiated the size and speeds that you hook somebody.
I think intent is intent. I do not agree with the call there. I don't care where it is. It doesn't matter if it's Daytona, Talladega, Martinsville, wherever. There's intent, and that's not his first offense either. So he got off the hook on that one.
So, Kyle, do you feel like there was a distinct line in the sand that if you hook somebody, you were going to be out, and now that line is a little unclear?
Isn't that what we've all talked about forever? Yeah. I mean, I've been guilty of it before, and I've been sat out of it before. So, maybe it's all in who your last name is.
Intent is intent. I totally agree with Rowdy. Here's why. Driving a race car is dangerous enough. I don't care if it's 50 miles per hour or 150 miles per hour. If it brings out a caution or doesn't, or whatever else NASCAR said was its justification for not suspending Cindric. If you decide, and it is a decision, to use your race car as a weapon, as Wallace and Elliott did, and as Busch also admitted, and as Cindric did on Sunday at COTA, it should come with the same penalty regardless of what happens to the car that was hooked. Did NASCAR hold back because they didn't want to have to implement its new waiver rule that removes all playoff points for the regular season in the event of a suspension? We'll never know that answer. But for consistency's sake, which I know is a monumental struggle for the governing body, this was a no-brainer for me. Now, going forward, we have to wonder when it happens again, were they going fast enough? Was it tighter confines? Did it bring out a caution? Just a bunch of BS. I'm sure there will be those of you who disagree with me. Let me know in the comments section. And finally, our last breaking news item of yesterday was Chase Briscoe winning his appeal. I have to say, last week I was listening to Joe Gibbs Racing president Dave Alpern on SiriusXM NASCAR radio, and he made a compelling case why the number 19 team didn't do anything wrong. Larry Mack talked about it after that interview and said what he found interesting was how JGR appealed and opted not to sit out James Small for the two wildcard races of Atlanta and COTA. which would have been good races to have him serve the 2 races of his 4-race suspension, but instead kept him on the box, which was an indication they were confident in their case. And now we know why. That news concluded a bad day for NASCAR. Lost the case, made an inconsistent ruling on Cindric, and totally took the spotlight off of the good racing with its countersuit. Definitely a busy news day. Moving on to our next item, and it's Ty Gibbs' slow start to the 2025 season. Now, I know fans of the 22-year-old will say they're not concerned because of his results on what I mentioned a second ago as 3 wildcard races, so I'll give them that. But I want to add those 3 results to the previous 10 results for the number 54 car in 2024. Take a look at these numbers courtesy of my buddy Joel Steuben at Stube.com. As you can see, Gibbs was up and down throughout last year. But take a look at what happened in those final 10 races. There were only 4 finishes inside the top 20, including his best finish in that 10-race window, a 5th at Kansas. But there were 5 results of 30th or worse. Yes, 30th. He's added 2 more finishes of 30th or worse this year, with a 32nd at Atlanta and a 34th at COTA. In those 13 races, his average finishing position is 25.15. And now, to add a little fuel to the fire, I want to compare him to another 22-year-old over the final 10 races in 2024 and the first 3 races in 2025. Carson Hocevar. In that same time, he's got 9 finishes inside the top 20, including 3 inside the top 10. His runner-up at Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, his best result. But the biggest difference is he doesn't have any of those disastrous finishes. The Spire driver has just 2 results in the 30s, which all combined comes out to an average finishing position of 16.5, or 9 spots better than Gibbs. I said it to a couple of my media counterparts at Daytona. I know everyone is on the Gibbs bandwagon about him approaching the 100 race mark, and he's due to make a trip to victory lane in the near future. But I think Hocevar, based on the way both drivers finished 2024 and have started 2025, is in line to win first. Now, that doesn't mean Gibbs won't go out and win at Phoenix this weekend, but I'm still going to lean in the direction of Hocevar just because, to me, he's been the better driver as of late and been in position to win, whereas Gibbs has not even been close. And now it's time to move on to our final story of the day about Netflix. As you have likely heard this week, F1's 7th season of Drive to Survive will be released tomorrow on the streaming service. The docuseries will recap the 2024 season. So the release on Friday makes sense because the 2025 F1 campaign kicks off next week in Australia. But now let's go to NASCAR. The NASCAR official season kicked off almost 3 weeks ago on February 16th at the Daytona 500. And when is NASCAR's docuseries Full Speed scheduled to premiere? Sometime in April. Yeah, a month from now. Now you're asking, when did last year's first edition of Full Speed premiere? On January 30th, before the clash at the Coliseum. Yeah, before the season, allowing fans to follow along with what happened in 2023 and get ready for 2024. The news of this year's release date was revealed back in November, and I wrote about it for Athlon. And the reason, according to co-executive producer Tim Mullen, quote, yeah, the Netflix schedule is a little bit thicker this time in February, so the next iteration of the show, season 2, will drop in April, end quote. A little bit thicker schedule? Over the last few months, I've reached out to Netflix multiple times. Each time, no response. So I don't know what the thicker schedule even means. What I do know is I'll watch it because I cover the sport. Maybe the diehards will watch it. But it's absolutely ridiculous to think that casual fans will want to tune in to watch what happened in the last 10 races of the 2024 season when we're already almost 10 races into the 2025 season. All of those storylines are old and outdated. I think this is a massive miss by whoever makes these decisions about that thicker schedule, and it's totally disrespectful to NASCAR, the teams, and the fans, thinking that they will care about something that is no longer relevant. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. I want to hear what you think. Let's go from last to first. What do you think about Netflix airing NASCAR's docuseries in April? Will you be watching? And for you Ty Gibbs fans, are you concerned after seeing how he closed out 2024 and how he started in 2025? Who do you think gets his first win sooner, Gibbs or Hocevar? And what are your thoughts on the breaking news items from yesterday? Did NASCAR get the Cindric penalty right? Or do you think he deserved a suspension? And were you surprised that Chase Briscoe and the number 19 team won their appeal? And lastly, what do you think about NASCAR's response to the COTA corner cutting controversy and how NASCAR has admitted to 3 mistakes in the first 3 races of the season? You have to give them credit for being consistent. Thanks as always for checking out the latest video and supporting the channel. I really and truly appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of your day.